One thing people are always looking towards to improve their Apex Legends experience is their settings. There are a lot of them in Apex, and most people aren't sure what to look for in them. So hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8 Second Gaming, and in today's video I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know about the best settings for Apex. And if you're here, you obviously want to get better at Apex, so why wouldn't you use the best tool there is out there to improve? Over on the GameLeap website, we have top level coaches creating highly in-depth guides in order to teach you anything and everything you need to know about Apex, with new guides coming out all the time. Over there you'll find legend guides, gun guides, VOD reviews, and so much more, and I promise you that you will not find these kinds of videos that in-depth anywhere else. So click the link in the description, get yourself a membership, or I'll hard boil all your eggs and then just put them back in the container. But now, jumping back into settings, I just want to make this very clear. These will not be covering keybinds at all. If you're a controller player looking for keybinds and that sort of thing, we do have a full video on our channel breaking that down. So this is strictly for video settings to improve your gameplay and quality of life. So let's start this off and go in order with button hints. This is just the extra bit of text that sits under your abilities or guns, letting you know what you have them bound to. So say Q for your tactical or 1 for your first gun. This doesn't really affect much, so you can just leave it on. Next up is crosshair damage feedback. Always turn this off. This is basically hit markers and they clutter up your screen. There is no need for them, as you already know if you're hit or not by the damage numbers popping up. For damage numbers, you always want to have these set on stacking. If you have them turned off, you won't know how much damage you've done to somebody in order to call it out for your team, and that is a huge thing in fights. If you have it floating, then you have to add up the numbers in your own head as the fight goes on, and it's not really worth it. And both just has too much information and too much stuff on your screen that you don't need. You only need stacking, so only run stacking. Next up, for ping opacity, I leave this on default. You always want to be able to see them in fights, and turning them to faded can cause you to miss them and then die in a fight because of it. Obituaries is the kill feed. Always have that on because it's very important in fights to know who's dying to what weapons. Minimap rotation should be turned off. You always want to know what direction is north or south just by looking at your minimap, and sometimes the spinning can throw people off. Weapon auto cycle on empty is personal choice. I leave it off because I know when I'm out of ammo and want to be in control of when I swapped my other gun. But if you like having that little bit extra of a reminder when you're out of bullets, then turn this on. Auto sprint should be off. You want to have full control of your character, and sometimes with auto sprint you don't always have that option because they can just randomly start sprinting. And double tap sprint should also be off because, much like auto sprint, you want full control of your character at 1 press of a button, not 2. Jetpack control, this is for Valkyrie and should always be on hold. I do know that some controller players play on toggle, but hold gives you more control over her mid-flight and has better mobility options. Incoming damage feedback, this should be left at 3D. It gives you more information without taking too much of your screen and causing clutter, so just have it on 3D. For taking damage closes, death boxes, and crafting, turn this off. Sometimes in fights you need to get fast clutch armor swaps, and this helps so much. Plus, when you're trying to craft in Storm, it won't have you being forced out of the crafting menu. This can take some time to get used to, but trust me, it is worth it. Hop up pop up is just that little bit of extra text that tells you about the hop ups in the game and what weapons they go on. I personally leave this on because it doesn't really affect anything, so it's not really worth worrying about. For streamer mode, this is completely up to you, but just a little bit of a tip: if you're the type of person who's playing in higher tier lobbies and get nervous when certain people are in your game, then turn this to all. This hides everyone's names and makes it so you won't ever know who's in your game, so you won't get nervous and can play like you normally do. Performance display should always be on because you need to know if you have packet loss or are lagging so that you can avoid fights at those times. Plus, it is nice to see your frames to see if you're dropping any, so always on. Now, for reticle color, there are a bunch of different choices you can go for, but the two big ones that I recommend right now are cyan and green. In order to get the green, type in 0 red, 255 green, and 0 blue, but do be aware that the numbers may be automatically changed, but that's completely normal. Green is fantastic, and the human eye is very sensitive to different green colors, so we can easily tell the differences, so I absolutely love this color. And the cyan one is the default one on the right hand side. It's a great color that stands out a lot, and I did use this for a fair amount this season. Then going forward, the accessibility tab, this is all up to you and what your needs are in the game. I can't speak for colorblind players because I'm not one, but you know what colors need to be changed, so have at her. Now for the video tab. For display mode, this should always be in full screen no matter what, not borderless window, full screen. It helps with FPS, trust me. Aspect ratio and resolution should always be left at native. Unless you're trying to play stretched res, then you can change it, but that's completely different. Brightness I have at 50%, but this is personal choice with your monitor settings and your eyesight, so play around and find one that you enjoy. For FOV, I highly recommend 104. It bridges the gap between not enough and too much. Anything under 100 isn't enough, and if you go up to 110, it starts to weirdly distort the picture and give it a fisheye effect. 104 is amazing, and I think a lot more people should play it. For FOV ability scaling, turn this off. This is when you would Bloodhound Alt or Octane Stim and it makes your FOV go up. It changes your sensitivity and can mess with your aim, so always turn this off. Sprint View Shake, turn this to minimal. It's just a dumb setting and I don't understand why anybody would have this on because it just looks weird. Now for advanced settings, let's start with VSync. This should always be turned off. Especially on lower end PCs, this can cause issues with FPS and it's not worth having on. I've never had an issue with screen tears and I play with this off all the time. For the Nvidia settings, enabled plus boost is the best for lower end PCs, and the adaptive resolution FPS target should be set to 0. And then everything after this, and I mean everything, should be set to low, none, or off. The only exception is the texture streaming budget. If you have a better PC, you can turn this up and have the game look a bit better. But if you don't really care about how pretty things are, then it's just best to have this off. You'll get more out of your computer because of it. And I do mean literally everything should be set to low or off. Anti-aliasing, none. Texture filtering, bilinear, sun shadows, low. Model and effects details, low. Ragdolls, low. Like literally everything, low or off. I cannot stress this enough. This makes it so you get more performance out of your PC, so low end ones do get better boost of FPS and it makes your game run smoother, and then that can cause your aim to be better because you're not jumping around all the time. Having lower FPS can cause a lot of issues, so you want to get the most you can. And even higher end ones should have all this stuff off. The only thing that makes the game look good is the texture streaming budget, so play around with that if you want it to look just a little bit better. And like I said, this isn't going over any keybinds, so there will be a future video for mouse and keyboard players covering it, and controller ones we do already have on this channel. Settings are a very basic thing, but changes your game so much. So I really hope this video helped you guys out and you learned some changes to make in the game. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button to stay up to date with all of the latest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news. Thank you guys all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming and I will see you in the next one.